Good morning. During the declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and in-person attendance limitations. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone, or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry, and when your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderated one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Committee members participating today are Mr. Donald Taylor, Mishi McCloskey, and Laura Alderson, and I am Michael Clark, and I am the panel chair. We also ask that you mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Land acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is now called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wishes to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, as Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB, in the event of an appeal, will be sending appeal updates and notifications by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the Committee of Adjustment rendered here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited instances to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. I will call each item in the order listed in the agenda. Actually, we'll start off first by dealing with deferral requests. There's a number of deferral requests, and I know on some of those they're contested, so we'll deal with those at the outset. But other than that, we'll go in order. When an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with a presentation if desired. Where the committee does not require a presentation, applicants should advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address at the outset, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and make a presentation to the committee of the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if being substantially revised, in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals, either in support or opposed to the application, usually opposed to the application, will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentations. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent is given an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that have been raised by the speakers. That will then end the mark of the discussion. The application is then taken into committee for a decision. Okay, so we have some preliminary matters to take care of. The confirmation of the minutes of the August 12th hearing. Panel members, anyone has reviewed those minutes and prepared to make a motion to approve them?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Ms. McCluskey. Seconder for that, Ms. Alderson. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, the minutes are approved. Okay. Adam, we'll deal with the deferral requests at first, I guess, because we have a consolidated planning memo requesting deferral on items 1 and 2. But I think in both of those, they may wish to proceed. So let's deal first, and well, that's the first 2 hearings anyway, but we also have a few others, I guess, that we'll try to clear from the list at that time
Yeah.
also. I
Sorry.
believe there's requests, whether they're on consent or whether the applicant agrees. We have requests also on 11, 12, and 13.
Yeah.
So we'll deal with 1, 2, 11, 12, and 13.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. When staff were sound checking the participants, the only agent that said, or that was going to request a deferral was the agent for item 13. The agent for items 1 to 11 and 12 all wanted to proceed on the merits today. They're aware of the deferral request by various city departments, but want to proceed today.
Okay, question for the Secretary Treasurer. We just, we have requests from city departments. They're, in some cases, valid requests by transportation, or it's, defer or refuse. So the applicant takes that risk that, I believe in number 1, although there was a deferral request, it appears now that the councillor and others wish that this matter has been deferred long enough. The applicant has provided us with the chronology and the additional materials, and they wish to defer. So do we have to hear that, or now we do that one in particular? I don't think we have to hear on the deferral request. Committee members?
I think the ones where the applicants aren't agreeing, we can just deal with them in order. And to clear sort of an item, we can deal with item 13, where it's actually the agent asking for the deferral.
Okay, so you suggest we just deal with 1 and 2 wish to proceed, so we'll just ignore the deferral request. It looks like in the second one.
We'll just deal with it at the time, since
Right,
it won't
okay.
really save us any.
Yeah, because planning has no comments on number 2, so even though it was on the list. Okay, so the only one we'll deal with then is item number 13, Barb. So let's hear from 60 Thompson Avenue. The agent is Graham Barrett.
Good morning, committee members, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, we also have appearing on this application who we'll hear for in the matter of deferral from 2 neighbors. So we'll just hear from them. I think it's just one neighbor because it was husband and wife. Okay, Mr. Barrett. So this is for a 1-story addition.
Yes, that's correct.
Secondary, so we do have a revised notice, I believe. 4 of the 7 variances have been revised. I think the councillor is also recommending deferral. So why don't you tell us the reason?
Sure. Well, this is a proposal to attempt to build a ground level secondary suite for the owner's mother, but we have been in conversation with TOCA, the Thompson Orchard Community Association, and they have indicated that they are opposed to this proposal. And if it were to be successful at committee, would likely be appealed, and the owner would like to avoid that. So we need some time to rethink this and come back with a proposal that works for both my client and members of TOCA.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Barrett? And I guess we should just hear from one of the neighbor who's weighed in.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I don't have those 2 individuals listed as speakers.
Okay, so it was just in the issue of deferral anyway, so hopefully they can join us back when this matter is eventually heard on the merits. Okay, so committee members, motion to defer.
I'm happy to make that motion to defer, to give the applicant an opportunity to consult with TOCA.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson. Seconded by Mr.
I'll second, Mr.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all in favor? The matter is deferred. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. We'll see you here again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's when we just go back to the top of the agenda and deal in order. The first application is number 191 Lake Promenade. And we have the speakers on this, the owner's son, as well as neighbors. It's 9389 Lake Promenade, and Andy Choles from the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. Okay, so let me just do a brief introduction here. It's an application to construct a 2-story front addition and a new rear deck. There are 8 variances. We have supporting material. Councillor Grimes weighed in and the additional materials that I mentioned at the outset that should be heard. Transportation was looking for a deferral. The applicant has provided us with a chronology on this application. TRCA feels it's not consistent with TRCA policy and programs. We have 6 letters of support, 2 letters of opposition from 89 and 119 Lake Promenade. 89 is a comprehensive letter and feels it should be deferred. TRCA advises that additional dwelling units within the shoreline hazard will not be permitted. So, Mr. Stern, welcome.
Hi there.
So I understand you wish to proceed notwithstanding the deferral request from transportation and the TRCA.
Yes, that's correct.
And the neighbor, for that matter, at 89 as well.
Yes, yes. Actually, I've spoken to Urban Forestry as well as Conservation Authority.
Yep.
And the Conservation Authority doesn't actually affect number 8, which is the variance I'm asking for. That's the existing non-conforming condition. As for the FSI, I did speak to them since that time, and we've looked at mitigation processes for the erosion hazard, which would allow us to perhaps put that rear deck. It only revolves around the rear deck. The rest of the property is not an issue.
Mm-hmm. And that affects just variance number 8? Or...
Well, that wouldn't be variance number 8. It would be variance, the floor space index
and
variance.
And you obviously, yeah, one is obviously affected by that as well with the deck.
Exactly.
So without the deck, I don't know, what would your FSI, your floor space index be? Do you know that?
It'd be slightly small. Well, it's only 77 square feet.
Okay.
I mean, that is an option, but we'll as I said, I spoke to the Conservation Authority and said we'll deal with this after, because obviously we can't build without a permit from them anyhow. Yeah.
True. We don't have anything from them advising to that. So why don't you make a presentation then, and we'll then hear from the neighbors, and we'll see if committee members have any questions.
Okay, gladly. Hi, my name is Rob Stern. I'm the agent for the owner of this property, who are my parents. This building was designed to meet their needs as seniors using the Toronto Senior Strategy 2.0. It includes an elevator for accessibility, space for physical exercise, and a secondary suite for a caregiver, which is supported by the citywide zoning bylaws. The secondary suite will be occupied by their daughter and 2 young boys. This is also supported by the city's official plan on intensification. Now, I talked about the deferrals from the Conservation Authority. Transportation works. It's just simply an omission of a number. Once we put that in, we can satisfy them. And then we got on to planning. I don't know if the chronology is up there, which is slide number 1, but it's been quite a lengthy process. So we've tried to do our due diligence, and we started this process.
Annalisa, could you perhaps get the chronology up on the screen while Mr. Stern is speaking?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, slide number 1. Yeah.
I think it was in the additional materials. I could be incorrect, but I believe that's where it was.
Okay, so as I said, we've tried to do our due diligence and started this process early with the first submission in November of last year. Since that time, we've revised our plan 4 times and dealt with 5 different individuals in the planning department. We even agreed to sign a legal agreement absolving the city of liability if flooding occurs. This current plan was submitted April 10th with only minor adjustments to the FSI calculation. Planning has, in our opinion, has had more than ample time to review this project. And if we get slide number 2, which is just a letter from the a planner and architect, please. Thank you. To address the variances, firstly, we would like to remove variance number 6, which deals with the east side yard setback, and we want to comply with variance number 6 to do with the deck. Variance number 1 is the floor space index, which is 1.29, which seems high because of how it's calculated. This lot is waterfront, therefore it uses the area north of the shoreline hazard to calculate the floor space index. If the same property was located on the north side of the road or anywhere in Long Branch, the actual lot area would be used to calculate the floor space index, and that would be 0.55, whereas the bylaw allows for 0.35. A floor space index of 0.55 is not uncommon in this area. Thus, we feel this is truly minor in nature. Variance number 2, we are proposing a front yard setback of 9.5 meters when the bylaw calls for 15.92 meters. As this project is an addition to the existing structure, we have very little flexibility. We are unable to expand to the rear due to the Conservation Authority constraints. So in order to add a garage, we have no option but to put it at the front of the property. This is the minimum setback that will allow for a standard depth garage. As other properties along Lake Promenade have similar setbacks, and since we are aligning with the proposed development at 93, which is the property to the west, the abutting lot, we feel this is truly minor in nature. Variance number 3, the current structure is an existing non-conforming condition where the east side of the property is 0.74 meters, where it should be 1.2 meters. We are simply asking to extend this condition forward to maintain the current massing. And in variance number 4, we are proposing a dwelling depth of 22.3 meters, where the bylaw allows for 17 meters. Again, this is an addition to the existing building, and in order to attach a standard size garage to the front of the structure, this would be the minimum building length required. Number 5 is the architectural feature encroaches into the front yard by 6.82 meters, where the bylaw allows 0.6. Actually, this number is a bit misleading because it's taken from the existing or the old front yard setback. And if the proposed front yard was used for the 0.6 of the meter encroachment, we wouldn't even need a variance at that point. And variance number 7 deals with reverse grade garages. We have mitigated the drainage and flooding concerns with gravity fed drains to the lake and have followed Transportation and Works' driveway slope guidelines. Reverse grade garages are one of the prevailing conditions on the street, again, making this truly minor. And finally, variance number 8 relates to the setback of the building from the shoreline hazard. As you can see on the site plan, the hazard line is well into the existing structure. So this would be considered an existing non-conforming condition. The TRCA submission does not address this variance as they feel it's not an issue, this particular variance. And as a point of note, I think speaker brought it up, the overwhelming majority of the immediate neighbors who are impacted by this development are not objecting. We are of the opinion, and so is the expert in the field, Peter Gabor, who's a planner and architect, that this application clearly meets the 4 tests.
Yeah,
As we are not asking,
Mr. Stern, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. Give another 30 seconds because you're over the time allowed. Thanks.
I'm sorry. Okay, as we are not asking for more than, basically we comply with the 4 tests. It's minor in nature. The proposal is considered desirable for this area because it is a single residential. It follows the citywide bylaws, and we are following the official plan as we are intensifying and using the prevailing conditions. Sorry, Elsie.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Just point out, yeah, we do have, first of all, 6 neighbors in support, 93, 88, 102, 104, 99, and 96. We have the opposition speaker is going to be here from 89, who wrote the substantive letter right next door, as well as, and you did fill out the, you've complied with the checklist, correct? I think the checklist has been filled out, the Long Branch.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions, panel members, for Mr. Stern before we move on to hear from the neighbors? Okay. Let's hear then from the neighbor at 93 Lake Promenade. It looks like that's one of the people who've signed a letter of support. So they are in support. So let's hear briefly from that neighbor.
Hi there. My name is Sahil Jaggi. I'm the owner of 93 Lake Promenade. When the Stearns next door were starting the plans, they were very courteous. They came up to me. They, showed me their plans. They, discussed what was important to me, what was not important to me. As you know, we're living on the lake, so view is one of the big things. And one of my only requests was, please don't build back, because if they start building in the rear, it blocks our view. And that that request was taken into consideration right away. And that's probably one of the reasons they're also not building in the rear, and that's causing them to have no choice but to do the addition in the front. Other than that, I fully support what they're planning to build. I think it's a good design, and it doesn't disrupt anything to do with me or my future designs of this small bungalow that I live in. So I suggest that we, grant approval to this project, and I support it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jaggi. So, and you're right next door, and you obviously feel then the correct place to do an addition is at the front and not in the rear.
Exactly, because building in the back would cause direct, problem with my views to the east side of the lake, and anybody who's living on the lake would not want that. So I suggest since it's a long lot, they have to go one way or the other. For me, it's be more desirable to build on the driveway rather than the back.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, panel members, for Mr. Jaggi? Okay.
I have a quick question, Mr. Jaggi. Do you currently have a garage on your property or no?
I do. It's an existing reverse car garage that I have. It's very small, so it's not entirely usable for cars of the 20th century, but like you could still fit very small cars. But yeah, I have an existing.
So it's a reverse slope driveway then?
It is a reverse slope driveway, and I believe a lot of the homes on Lake Promenade, I think it's about 20% of the homes on Lake Promenade come with this reverse car existing condition.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Jaggi? Or we'll move on to Andrea Hutka of 89 right next door on the other side, who's given us a lengthy and comprehensive letter as to the reasons why they do not agree to this. So let's hear then from Ms. Hutka. And please, speakers, if you can just start off by just formally stating for you, even though we know who it is, since we're doing this over the phone, start off by stating your name and address, and that's for all speakers, please. Thank you.
Hi, this is Andrea Hutka, owner of 89 Lake Promenade. I lived here since 1983, and we are the neighbor to the east of 91 Lake Promenade. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. So yes, I sent a letter in for the request for the deferral or postponement, as this impacts us extremely with regards to, just as Sahil had mentioned, that it blocks his view to the front. This blocks our view to the north and severely impacts the light coming into the windows from the north and the west, and completely blocks that, and it's a huge extension. When we initially spoke with the Stearns, it seemed like it was just a minor project, and now it's a two-story building and not just a garage. So the bottom line is that we simply did not have enough time to go over all the circumstances to adequately evaluate all of the proposals. And also my husband's mother just passed away, so we have that issue, and that we are asking for a deferral, as we simply didn't have enough time to deal with all of this.
Okay, well, we're hearing the application. There was, if you heard at the outset, there was a discussion. This matter has gone on for a long time, and I don't know what else you could do to prepare than what you've done. You've given us a very comprehensive, well-written letter. So kudos to you, even though you have other issues on your plate. So we'd like to just continue. You have another 3 minutes to speak because we're proceeding.
Okay, well, very good.
Again,
so we basically have the various issues. It's not just the fact that it's the distance to the north. It's also the fact that we believe that the survey is not matching up with our survey. There's the issue with the shoreline, the seawall, and the rocks. We had discussions with the previous neighbor, and those were never addressed, and we were polite and didn't do anything, and now we discussed it with the Stearns, and nothing has moved forward either with regards to that. So that was an issue. The issue also that the building is continuing on the same lot line as it was before. It's already way larger than it should have been. It's so close to our house, and now the continuing building will again continue that same over-maximized size closest to our lot line. So the previous building, as it was built, was already larger than what the area allowed, and it was in poor condition. As it was mentioned, it was built in 1923, and it had issues then. It had issues in 1983 when we were thinking of purchasing it, and it seems not sound from what we can tell. anyway, so the problem is that the footprint it is right now is already larger than what it should be, and now on top of it all, we're getting another house in front of the house, and it's going to totally block us and impact us negatively in every way. So I think that sort of sums it up. So basically, if nothing can be done, then we will oppose it.
Sorry, was the last thing, if there's nothing can be done, we will?
If nothing can be done with regards to the way it's designed, the length and the closeness to our property and the height, then we will oppose it.
Okay. Thank you. Panel members, any questions for Ms. Hutka? Okay, if not, the last speaker, and then we'll go back to Mr. Stern, is Andy Choles from the Long Branch Neighborhood Association.
Good morning. My name is Andy Choles. I live at 12 Jasmine Avenue, which is one long block north of this property. I'm here on behalf of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. I'm not sure where to begin with this proposed build. I've often spoke out against overbuilds where developers want increases of 50 or 75% more than the FSI, what's permitted in the bylaws. This plan asks for more than 350% of the FSI that's permitted by the bylaws. I believe the house was already over the 0.35 FSI permitted on the lot, but this plan makes matters so much worse. And I'm not sure how the FSI of 1.29 is actually 0.55 as presented this morning. Should these variances be approved, it will certainly help set a dangerous precedent for other properties along that will be developed in the future. This is hinted at by the applicant's response to LBNA guidelines referring to the building depth. The neighbor to the west is expanding their front yard, thus lessening the impact of the reduced front yard. The neighbor to the east plans to redevelop, further lessening the impact. He expects the neighbors on both sides to expand their homes, which justifies his overbuild. No doubt the neighbors will use the expansion of 91 to justify the expansion of their homes in the future. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It should be noted that the neighbor to the west, 39, actually has the outline of his planned larger home on page 2 of the plans dated April 17th, 2021 for this build, and has written a letter of support. And I'm told his hearing is coming up in September for the application for his larger build. The neighbor to the east at 89 makes no mention of the plans to expand their home in their letter of objection. The proposed length of the building, as mentioned, at 91 is too long. According to the neighbor at 89 in her objection, the additional length will block sunlight and street views. Variance 3 tells us that the house is already too close to the lot line. Variance number 6 identifies the new deck will also encroach upon the setback.
Yeah,
the
Mr.
neighbor finds this
Choles,
unacceptable,
just interrupt for a
and
second.
so should the bylaws.
Sorry, Mr. Choles. Mr. Choles, just to let you know,
Yes.
the applicant has said he's withdrawn variance number 6.
Okay, thank you. The survey shows about a third of the house is presently over the shoreline erosion limit, and they want to build further over that limit with a deck and a pool. The negative slope driveway to the garage under the home may be asking for trouble. Transportation has expressed concerns about the driveway and the underground garage. Stating negative slope driveway is prevalent on the street is not accurate. The other neighbor noticed that 15 to 20% have negative slope driveways, and that's not prevalent. Negative slope driveways are not compliant with the LBNA guidelines and are generally not permitted in the bylaws in the City of Toronto. The neighbor's letter also reports the possible structural problems with the building. I have no knowledge of these issues, but I would suggest that any problems need to be verified and remedied with this renovation. Looking at this application with 8 variances, one can't help think that these folks could be headed for serious trouble potentially. And this family won't be in the house forever. At some point, they will move on. Should problems arise in the distant future, what will the answer be to why was this house design ever approved? All neighbors in their letters speak of the owners being wonderful people. Wonderful people aside, this panel needs to evaluate this home. Is this a home you want built and standing in the neighborhood for many decades to come? Lake Promenade is a special street, part of the Great Trail and well-traveled by many cyclists and pedestrians alike. It is something of a focal point in Long Branch, and as such, special care should be taken in evaluating the homes built on this street. It is not fair nor in the public interest that the applicant is asking the committee to assess this application against the 4 test without the professional city opinions that are available to them. The city staff have expressed in writing their concerns with the application and requested more time to assess it. Their opinion is unbiased and would ensure that the public interest is considered. The process takes time, no doubt slowed by COVID, but this is not the file that should be rushed ahead. As such, the LBNA would respectfully ask that this committee support the professional opinions of the city staff as well as the TRCA and defer this application. If it's not possible to defer it, it should be refused. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scholes. Any questions for Mr. Scholes before we go back to Mr. Stern? Okay, now just, and perhaps we can hear from Mr. Stern. We have on the consolidated memo this request for deferral. I was going to say the reason for that in the deferral recommendation stated, just to put in the record, it was in order to provide adequate time for staff to appropriately review the application, discuss any concerns, obtain potential changes, and or secure revised submissions material from the applicant for minor variance and or consent applications. We do have the councillor saying enough's enough. This matter's been around for a long time, as we've seen from the chronology, and that we should proceed. Transportation was asking for a deferral, as was the TRCA. So we've heard from the applicant that he can't proceed without a TRC permit anyway for the issues in the back. So, and just put on the record, variance 6 has been eliminated. So when it's time to make a motion, that has been withdrawn. Okay, Mr. Stern, back to you. Can you give us just response to the concerns and questions from the neighbors and from Mr. Trolls?
Okay. Okay, yes, absolutely. Both the neighbors and Mr. Trolls brought up the point that this structure is already over the floor space index. And as I alluded to earlier, because it is a shoreline property, the shoreline hazard is used to calculate it. If this property, as I said, was north on the street or anywhere in Long Branch, it would be 0.55 using the full area of the lot. And the actual existing structure would only be 0.32 in that circumstance. So it's a bit of an anomaly being along the lake. However, I did email the Long Branch Neighborhood Association 3 times to discuss things with them. They have not replied to me yet, so I don't know why they're not doing that. And then the gentleman from the Long Branch Neighborhood Association talked about overbuilding into the shoreline hazard. The deck is existing. The rear of the structure is not being changed. The setback is not being changed, and the proposed fill-in on the of the deck or the balcony on the second level does not go outside the existing walls now. So there's no FSI being added further into the shoreline hazard. It already exists. Sorry, structure, I should say, not FSI. As for prevailing condition, I'll just address that quickly. If you look at section 4.1, page 4-5 of the official plan, paragraphs 5 and 6, it states that neighborhoods can have more than one prevailing condition, and it recognizes there's a mix of physical characteristics in neighborhoods. As long as it has significant presence in that area, it will be considered a prevailing condition. Reverse grade garages, I don't think there's any debate. They have significant presence in this area. And then lastly, the engineering of the property. I would welcome the engineering report. If that's the case, we will deal with it. But before we go ahead and build anything, obviously we have to get an engineer's report, and they look at the structure. And what was the last thing? I just quickly. So we dealt with transportation works. As I said, it was just oversight of a number. We've dealt with Luigi Nicoli, and we've gone back and forth, and we've managed to meet their guidelines. I think the architect just left out one of the slopes, which was the problem. And the rest is, I mean, the Conservation Authority and Urban Forestry have spoken to, and we can deal with it later. We cannot build without Urban Forestry permit. We cannot build without a Conservation Authority permit. So I think that's it, unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stern. I have one question. So you said you're already over on the FSI. So do you know what your current number is? And again, based on being on the lake, you said that if it's anywhere else in Long Branch, it would be 0.55, but it's not anywhere else. It's actually on the lake. So it is what it is. Do you know what the current FSI is?
Sorry, I mean, with the shoreline hazard?
Just whatever it is based on shoreline
Actually,
hazard as the
I
dwellings currently exist.
I would have to guess. I know it is over The 0.35, yes, it is currently.
Okay, but there's a lot of room between 0.35 and 1.29 or whatever it is. So the question is, is it closer to the what it is now, or because you did say in your statement that it's already over? So fair question for panel members to have before them is what is it currently? So if you don't know, you don't know.
The statistics indicate 0.7.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any questions for Mr. Stern? And if not, we'll take it into committee for a decision. And remember, variance 6 has been eliminated. I believe there's an urban forestry condition. Okay. Yeah, number 2. Committee members, any follow-up questions and for Mr. Stern or for any of the speakers, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
I do have a question, Mr. Chair. The applicant, is the basement a separate unit or is that part of the house?
It's part of the house. It does have access from the outside, but it's for a multi-generational family. As I said, my parents have a daughter with 2 young boys, and that's what it's designed for.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm not prepared at this instant to make a motion, but I'm just wondering if I can offer some concerns I have or considerations that I'm sort of mulling through here. I'm concerned that we haven't had final sign off on this from the city, community planning, TRCA, and transportation. I know the chronology on this application goes back almost a year, and I can appreciate frustration on the applicant's part for not getting this resolved. But the fact is, it still isn't resolved, as far as I'm concerned, due to the absence of definitive finalization of comments from those 3 key agencies. So I just sort of put that out for my colleagues to comment on, disagree with, whatever.
Okay, I do note that if you're hinting at a possible further deferral, we have spent probably about 40 minutes hearing this application.
I know.
So any other panel members want to weigh in with their thoughts on that or their thoughts on motion?
I would like to actually. I would have to agree with Mr. Taylor that we're making a decision on a property that's prime property on a lake front, which is, as far as I know, they're not making any more lakefront properties anywhere. And so I think this decision, needs to be taken advisedly. And the only way to be able to do that is by having comments from community planning, transportation, and the TRCA. So at this point, for me, it's either deferral, which we've already spent a lot of time discussing this application, or refusal. Okay. So if that's the case, then I would make a motion for refusal of this application on the basis that we don't have adequate information in order to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Alderson. I think that's a very good point. Takes Mr. Taylor's concerns, but and it's often when we see requests for deferral, I'm not sure on these ones, they say, and if you don't defer, then refuse. And at this point, the applicant has said he wishes to proceed, notwithstanding we have 3 city departments who at one point or another asked for a deferral. So I believe that is an appropriate motion rather than further deferring it after spending 40 minutes on it. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Mr. Taylor? Okay, all in favor?
Yeah, I would second. Yeah. I would second the motion and just add to the rationale, not only due to the absence of critical comments from 3 agencies, but just on the merits of the proposal. I'm concerned with the FSI, notwithstanding the fact that the high water mark has an implication on that. The front yard setback, the building length, ad nauseum. I just think on the merits, it's too much house for the lot.
Okay, thank you.
So on that grounds, I second the motion on Ms. Alderson's grounds as well as on the merits.
Thank you. Good point. Ms. McCluskey, I saw your hand up just went just after Mr. Taylor's. Would you like to add anything or just to echo that you're also in favor of the refusal?
Sorry, I thought I was on mute. Nope, that all sounds, I agree with both Mr. Taylor.
Okay,
and
so the application is unanimously refused. Thank you, Mr. Stern, and thank you, neighbors, and Mr. Trolls. Okay, we'll move on to the second application, item number 2, which was also appeared as a possible deferral, but we are proceeding with it. And this is an application.
We are deferring it.
Sorry, is that Mr. Glenn Cross?
It is. So there was some miscommunication between my agent and myself, and it wasn't communicated to me, so there will be a deferral.
Okay, so you agree with community planning as well. Community planning's requested it, and you
I don't know if I agree with them yet,
yeah.
but I agree with the deferral.
Exactly. Yeah, and I just want to let me go. The referral said it was in order to provide adequate time for staff to properly review the application and discuss any concerns, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I guess we don't need to hear from you on the merits. So it's a deferral. You're agreeing to the deferral request that was made by community planning. And I guess we have 3 neighbors on the line, we're not, if we don't hear this substantively, we just have to hear on the issue of deferral. I don't see why they would have any objection, because until it's heard, I don't believe this is this is to build a detached garage in the rear yard, not to legalize something that was built without a permit, so there's no harm to the neighbors for the deferral. Madam Secretary Treasurer, do I have to hear from each of those neighbors, or can we dispense from that? Or perhaps just from Mr. Trolls?
We should just get quick confirmation in case there should be consultation with those people as part of the deferral.
Okay, sure. Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Crow at 84, right next door. Just on the issue of the deferral, not on the merits, please. Welcome.
Right, the deferral. Right, I'm Scott Crow, co-owner of the house next door, 84 39th Street, and I am not at all happy about this being deferred. This has gone on way too long, and I just want this garage built. I've been looking at this ugly thing back there from my former neighbor for years now, right? It's vermin infested, right? I want it gone. I want a new thing in there, beautiful new building. And then I can get my driveway repaired finally.
Okay, so sir, you're
but I'm not happy with this deferral.
Okay, but you're in favor of the application then when it eventually comes?
Oh, I'm so in favor of this thing. I mean, I'd be out there tearing it down myself right now if I could.
Okay, so I just want to know, normally
want
people,
this thing back there.
Right, normally people weigh in here and wait on the line or come here when we're doing it in person to object, not to be in support. But you're in support of this application?
I mean, I would have almost bought that house and rebuilt the garage myself.
Okay, but anyway, you're in support, and you're begrudgingly, because apparently I'm sure the applicant doesn't want to defer either, but community planning is asking for it for the reason I just stated. Okay,
yeah.
So let's move on.
What it is.
Yeah, you'll have
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll get built soon when they get this community planning's concern, has more time to review. Mr. Trolls, on the deferral only, please.
Deferral, sorry, am I on now?
Yep.
The LBNA would support the deferral. We agree that that's a bit of an eyesore, but we're hoping something a little bit smaller with a little more green space will be added.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, and hopefully staff can get this on an agenda quickly. Essentially we heard the concern of neighbor at 84 right next door. And the last speaker, Valerie Walton at 107 40th Street, just on the issue of deferral, please.
Valerie Walton, 107 40th Street. All I'm going to say is I fully endorse a new garage at this property. As I included in my August 18th, 2021 letter.
Yeah, I don't want to hear on the merits, ma'am. We have a long day ahead of us. Just tell me if you're in favor of the deferral, please. You'll have a chance to discuss the merits another time.
Okay, I'm in favor if this can move forward.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, on the deferral issue requested by planning, sort of begrudgingly agreed to, I guess, by the owner and the neighbor. Can we have a motion, please?
I'll move to defer.
Thank you, Ms. McCluskey. Seconded by Ms. Alderson. All in favor? Okay, matter is deferred. We'll see you all back here, hopefully sooner than later. Have a great day. Okay, the next application is item number 3, 57 Burnhamthorpe Park Boulevard. It's for 1-story west side addition and a 2-story east side addition. There are 6 variances. We have the site-specific zoning bylaw, zoning examiner, hold on, I can't read my writing. We have confirmation zoning examiner, arborist report, planning, ravine and natural feature protection, and TRCA reports, a lot of reports on this one. And as well, we have 14 letters of objection. We have, TRC8 says they have no objection and they support it in principle. Planning report wants to modify variance 5 in the event of an approval to 10 square meters. And registered to speak, we have Peter Del Grosso, the agent, as well as 4 neighbors. Well, it looks like 3 neighbors because one is speaking on behalf of someone else. We only have 1 speaker per address, so we have 3 other speakers. So, Mr. Del Grosso, welcome.
Welcome. Yes, it's actually Anthony Del Grosso, not Peter.
Okay.
Not sure why Peter's there, but my address is 406 Horsham Avenue, and I am the agent for the owners at 57 Burnhamthorpe. Basically, we're proposing to do as you mentioned there, a rear 2-story addition to line up with the existing. There was an addition done, I guess, in the past, and we're looking to line up that wall at the back, as well as a garage addition to the front with a walk-up stair to the, I guess, northeast front. We have been working with TRCA to abide by their setbacks to allow for this, and they have no objection to it. Also, item number 5, I have been discussing the changes, the revisions with planning. So we did reduce the rear deck, covered deck, to 10 square meters, and the upper terrace area to 3.4 square meters. Drawings were submitted early August, but due to, I guess, absence or some city members were away, so maybe you don't have the updated drawings there, but we do have revised drawings to reduce item number 5 to 10 square meters and 3.4 on the upper.
Okay, so this plan, I don't believe we have it, but it is in accordance with the planning report to modify variance 5 to 10 meters. And what's the other one? Does that affect any other variances?
There's a 2nd story, I guess, terrace off the master bedroom where 4 square meters is permitted. We've reduced that to 3.4 square meters, so it's under the 4 meters allowable.
Okay, but that doesn't affect the variance because there was no variance for that. But it is a change.
Well, it is mentioned in number 5, so we took care of it. And we had to, due to cutting back the lower area, it automatically reduced the upper area. So.
Okay, so it's when number 5
So
it says the maximum. Yeah, item number 5 says the maximum permitted area of a platform is 4 meters. The rear platforms will each have 11.4. So you're saying now the one is going to be 10, or you agree to that, and the other one is actually going to be below the 0.4 permitted. So that's good for the neighbors to hear who were here with concerns. Okay, please continue.
Sure, I know you're saying the lower one, but they're both above the 2nd floor. So which one is going to be 10 square meters at which level?
Well, there's one deck right off the kitchen, which is the ground level, which was 11.4, is now 10 square meters. That's the
but
one
is that considered your
floor.
2nd story?
No.
Yeah,
because the variance only applies to platforms at or above a 2nd story. So is your grade different, or is your basement exposed where your main floor is considered a 2nd story?
Well, we're only about a meter above, so we're not exposed. The 2nd story, the ground floor is not considered a 2nd story.
Okay, here's a question. Do you have 2 platforms at the 2nd story? Because that's what the variance seems to imply.
No.
It's the proposed rear platforms, plural. So it should be changed to the proposed rear platform in the event of an approval will have, not each, will have an area of 10 square meters, which And we don't talk about the other one because it's not referred to in this variance, because as the Secretary Treasurer mentioned, it's not a second story platform. This variance only deals with platforms above the first floor. Okay, everyone clear on that?
Okay.
So we have one platform, and it is going to be reduced from 10.4 on the table to 10. Okay, please continue. You have about a minute or so remaining, and then we'll hear from the neighbors.
That's it. That's basically what I'm proposing now.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Del Grosso before we move on to hear from the neighbors? Okay, no. So let's hear from the neighbor, either Mr. or Mrs. Usadis at 59 Burnhamthorpe Park, right next door.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We are to the west side of the
Yeah, can
property.
you start off by stating your name and address formally for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Mike Usadis, and I'm 59 Burnhamthorpe Park Boulevard.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And we are immediately to the west of the property,
Mm-hmm.
adjoining the property.
I'll just point out to
Our
neighbors, we do
objection-
have 14 letters of objection, and they're attached to our materials. They look like it's a sort of a form letter that someone did. Perhaps Mr. Usadis is the most directly affected neighbor, and it's been signed by 14 area residents. Please continue, sir. Sorry for interrupting.
Sure, no problem. By the way, in looking at those letters, I think everybody wrote those letters and added personal comments to the guidelines which were provided to them. So I think it's important to read each of the letters of objection.
Yes.
Overall, the street that we live on, Burnhamthorpe Park Boulevard, is a very unique street in the city of Toronto and perhaps in all of Canada. Every home is different. It's designed different. Every property is of different size, and there are significant numbers of trees. The properties facing to the north all back into a golf course, and the properties immediately surrounding our house basically have a very steep ravine that goes down into the golf course. This ravine has the potential for quite significant erosions. It's probably an 80-degree slope. You cannot walk down it. So one of the concerns I have, or we have, is the setback from the top of bank, which is reduced from 10 meters to 6.1 meters. That means that the structure will be very close to the bank and potentially can increase erosion both on the applicant's property as well as our property. The second objection that we have concerns the balcony, which you folks referred to previously, which has now been reduced to 10 meters, 10 square meters, but is still significantly above the bylaws. The other area that is of concern to us is the floor area of this property, which exceeds the bylaw by roughly 150%. And that again will, if granted, could set a precedent for many other people in the area to build what we call much larger structures than the properties were originally designed for. And that concerns us. In addition, the side yard setback, aggregate side yard setback, is already non-conforming. And the proposal is to exceed that non-conforming number by another 15%. And finally, the gross coverage again exceeds the bylaws that were set down for these homes on this very unique street. Our overall concern, and the overall concern of the vast majority of the residents on this street, is the precedent that will be set for the coverage on the street, and in particular, the encroachment to the top of bank of this very unique ravine. which is prone to erosion. All of the all of the objectors of the 14 objectors, who, by the way, we know are basically concerned about the precedent setting of this application and the probable overbuilding on properties in the future, which will destroy the character of the street. So I do not consider this to be anywhere close to a minor variance. I think it is a major number of variances. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Usatis. Anyone have any questions, panel members, for Mr. Usatis before we move on to the next speaker? Okay. The next speaker is Barbara Gingras at 52 Burnhamthorpe Park. So across the street from the subject property. Good morning. Is Ms. Gingras there?
Speaking.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Loud and
Good
clear.
morning. This is Barb Gingras from 52 Burnhamthorpe Park. I agree with all of the points that Mike has made. We look forward to a new home being built on this property, but the size that is being proposed is really not in keeping with the street. From a personal perspective, when I sit out on my front step, I currently have a beautiful view into the golf course with all of the trees on the embankment, and this new build would completely block that. So I really recommend that we reduce the size of the build and keep it within the restrictions that apply. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any questions before we move on to the next speaker? Panel members. Okay. Next speaker, Ben Dominguez at 133 Evans Avenue, speaking on behalf of Michael Lawrence, who's also listed as a speaker. So the question is who's going to be speaking on behalf of 55 Burnhamthorpe, which is the neighbor on the other side?
Hi, this is Ben Dominguez here. I guess I'll be speaking for 55 Burnhamthorpe.
Okay, so are you an agent? Are you a planner? What's your?
I'm an architect, actually.
You're an architect. Okay, thank you. Perfect. So
okay,
please,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I spent some time in the neighborhood recently on behalf of Mike Lawrence at 55 Burnhamthorpe to get to know the neighborhood a bit better. I found it to be a beautiful tree-lined neighborhood, established neighborhood with wide lots consisting of a mix of arts and crafts homes, modern transitional homes. The homes tend to be very well set back from the road, ample separation to adjacent homes. This definitely is not a high density area. There is a definite sense, I feel anyways, of spaciousness throughout. So in looking at the application and what's proposed here with regards to some of the variances, I'll start with variance number 4. The subject lot, 57 Burnhamthorpe, has a front lot width of 15.24 meters at the street line. The lot is also considered, irregular if you look at the site plan because it's not a perfect rectangle that actually tapers and narrows towards the ravine at the back. Therefore, this creates a lot frontage on paper anyways that is slightly less than 15 meters. And since the lot frontage is measured at the front yard, setback, therefore the side yard variance is only 0.9 as you see in the zoning notice with an aggregate of 2.1 meters. But in reality, the property is viewed at the street and it appears to be essentially a typical rectangular lot, which would require a substantial bit more of a side yard requirement, 1.2 meters side yard with an aggregate of 3 meters. So the proposed side yard of 0.66 will create a very tight separation between 57 and 55. And that the space between the homes will, with a full story height wall that's going to be built here is incongruous with the neighborhood. Most homes have 2 to 3 meter separation adjacencies. So this is substantially less than that. It's also impractical from an aspect of access maintenance between the homes. I will say that there was an application recently at 47 Burnhamthorpe with a similar side yard variance requirement that was refused. The combination of variance 1 for lot coverage and variance 2 for GFA creates a massing which is, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people on the street, too large for the site. The proposed gross floor area density proposed is 0.741, which is excessive and substantially over the allowable 0.5 as per the site-specific bylaw. I'll note that a recent application in 2018 at 18 Burnhamthorpe with a proposed GFA of 0.68D was refused by the committee. The applicant then reduced the size of the proposal and reapplied with a density of 0.62D, and that was approved. Variants 5 and 6, the proposed rear second floor platform is almost 3 times max allowed, although it was stated 11.4 square meters. Now they're reducing it to 10, but that is still significantly over the allowed. It is also built within the TRCA shoreline hazard limit. In my research, I've not found any example of such a structure built to within that limit of the hazard limit at 6.1 meters of that limit. The platform will be a very large visual obstruction to the neighbors. There will also be significant privacy issues imposed on adjacent neighbors. The drawings do not properly convey this condition because the rear yards actually slope downwards significantly into the ravine. And the drawings, if you look at the drawings, it basically states that the site is flat, which it is not.
On the board? Yeah.
With regards to the drawings, it's important to note that there's some issues with the drawings. I found that the set is a bit devoid of pertinent information, as well as including inaccurate representation of certain existing conditions. Although a building section is not required, it certainly would convey these issues with regard to the site in relationship to adjacencies if it was supplied. The front elevation does not show an accurate relationship of the building to the side properties. If you look at that front elevation, it's showing that the property lines are much further than the proposed 0.66 meter on the side yard. It looks like there's tons of space to the property line, which in fact it is not. The eaves of the overhangs of the roof are almost at the property line. The right side elevation, windows are not shown. At the left side elevation, the windows are shown that don't exist on the plan. So there's a lot of inaccuracies in the plans that and the drawings themselves that makes it a bit hard to research and come up with a final summary on this.
Mr. Dominguez, would you like to wrap up, please? Would you like to wrap up? You're over 5 minutes.
The site-specific bylaw for this area speaks to the provisions of limiting density and massing within this neighborhood. The proposal does not meet the intent of this bylaw. The cumulative variances proposed here are a product of a design with a massing and scale not in keeping with the existing context and the size of the lot itself. This is likely why there have been at least 14 letters from 10 different addresses submitted to the committee by just about every neighbor that's in view of this house. It also appears that the applicant has not effectively communicated with neighbors to resolve their concerns. The proposal is not compatible with the existing physical character of the neighborhood, and I would ask, on behalf of the owner of 55 Burnhamthorpe Park and the adjacent opposing neighbors, that the committee refuse the application in its present form. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dominguez. Anyone have any questions for the agent for 55 next door? And if not, I guess we'll go back to Anthony Del Grosso for his rebuttal to the 3 neighbors who've spoken.
Okay, so I did want to get back to, I guess, item number 1 and 2, based on floor space index. It was reduced. This was, our area was reduced on floor area due to TRCA's. I did want to just stress that there is a top of bank and there's also an established stable top of bank. So let's not get the two confused. So we are within the top of bank, which is well within the, I guess, the slope that everyone's concerned about that leads down to the golf course. But then there is a 3 meter from that, which is an established or estimated stable top of bank. So our lot area has been reduced to that area, to that, I guess, square footage, which allows our footprint to go over what we're allowed. Also, I did want to mention with the side yard setback, I guess, to the closer to number 55. That addition was done, I guess, a few years ago, where they did and they maintained their setback at that point. And our building or our addition to the rear will actually be in line or less than what they've extended their, I guess, their proposed addition was at. So we're trying to maintain not to exceed the length to the neighbor, I guess, to the west, I think it is. South, number 55. The only thing that will be beyond that is our, I guess, our balcony, our covered portico there. And as far as windows and drawings, we do have an alternate second floor, which will be presented when we submit for permit, if this is accepted, because we can't have windows obviously on that side, on the 0.6. So there will be no windows on that south side of the building. And if there's any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Del Grosso. I have a question. So these are two additions. One of the issues is the gross floor area, the FSI. What is the house currently at prior to these two additions? What are you already over? I would imagine. Just what the GFA is currently? Sorry, FSI.
Sorry, I don't. That I don't have off. I don't have my complete drawings.
Because that's usually a very valid, question that you're doing additions, you're not doing a complete renew build. The committee would be valuable for the committee members to know what your property is currently at. Some people get an application to mail and they see it's it's way over, but in fact they're only adding like 0.5. 0.05 or something like that. So it would be valuable to know how much you're currently at. And otherwise, I guess the committees can take a look at the panel members can just see from the drawing and sort of visualize, but so you don't have that number.
I don't have that now. Well, I do have on the site plan the existing main floor area and second, but I don't have it worked out as a percentage.
That's fair. Okay, fine. That's fine. Committee members, any questions then for Mr. Del Grosso on his response, or any last minute questions for that matter for any of the speakers?
I do have a question actually. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how the design impacts the front yard setback, and because it looks to me from the drawings, and I wish that our colleague Mr. Bellissimo was here because he's very good with these things. But it looks to me like it's an improvement over an existing condition, that you're actually bringing the front of the house to meet the garage. Is that correct?
Just one section of the second floor above. There's a little projection at the front just for design detail. But it's mainly the garage that we're pulling forward there. The existing house main floor will stay where it is.
So the garage looks like it's already forward quite a bit from what I'm seeing on Google Maps. So
yeah,
you're telling me that you're bringing the garage even more forward and you're leaving the front of the facade back. Is that correct?
Yes, because the existing garage is only about less than 18 feet inside, and we need I guess depth. So we've decided to pull the garage forward. But yes, the main front wall of the house will remain where it is. We're not adding to that.
Because I was actually hoping that you were bringing the front entryway up to meet the garage instead of having a garage. to me, that design is poor. But anyway, those are my comments. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the agent, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Unless my friends have any comments, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I find this to be actually quite a reasonable proposal. I think the concerns about massing are, I'll say, overstated. You know, when we look at the lot coverage variance request, it's less than 18 square meters. Massing is really dictated by the width and height of the house, you know, from a street perspective. And there's no height variance requested. There's a an east side lot line side yard proposal of 0.66, which is about 1/4 of a meter less than zoning requires, which is less than 10 inches. So I don't think there's massing concerns. There were some concerns expressed about proximity to the ravine at the back, but we've got OKs from TRCA and RFMP, so I'm satisfied, subject to the condition of the community planning department to move approval.
We thank you, Mr. Taylor. A seconder for that motion? Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Okay, thank you, Mr. Del Grosso, and thank you, neighbors.
So just to clarify, the condition was to reduce it, the platform.
Yeah,
so,
to 10 square meters.
I don't know that we need to add that as a condition since the application was amended.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I guess my thinking was that aspect was covered off by the planning condition, which I requested. But if we need to state that more explicitly, I'm fine with that.
He amended it, so it would be based on the amended application.
Yeah, sure, fine. I'm good with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, item 4, construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. We have a yellow revised notice sheet, which is always a good sign. This is, we're 3 variances. There were 4 variances. Transportation has the conditions of approval, and we have 2 letters of support.
For some reason, it didn't get to her.
I guess we hear someone talking in the background. I don't know if someone has their microphone on. Perhaps it is the speaker, Eric Hayden. And we have 2 neighbors to speak as well in this application, neighbor from 66 and the neighbor at 5 Duncairn Drive.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Nicole from 66 Beaverbrook will not be joining us.
Okay.
So it's just the speaker from 5 Duncairn.
Yeah, and I had a note here that speaker was representing Doreen Sazanek, so I guess that's the owner of 66, but that speaker and next door neighbor will not be speaking. So we'll just have the other neighbor, but we'll start off with Mr. Hayden.
Sure. So just to note before we
start off by stating your name and address, sir.
Sure. So sorry, my name is Eric Hayden, 455 Dover Court Road, and I'm the representative of 64 Beaverbrook
Okay, thank you.
Avenue. And so, yeah, just to note, as you can see, we've been working with community planning through the process to resolve some of the concerns that they initially had. And as a result, we are no longer seeking variance number 1, and variance number 2 has been reduced from 0.67 to 0.61 floor space index. Otherwise, we are proceeding with variance number 3 and 4. And so just to give you a brief description of the project, what we're proposing here is a new 2-story detached house of 313 square meters in size with an integrated single-car garage and 2-car exterior driveway. The size and massing are fairly typical of other new builds that have been built in the area in recent years, and we've also tried to ensure that greater than required setbacks are provided in order to both minimize the impact on neighboring properties and to provide ample green space on the property. So as a result, we believe that this design is respectful of the character of the neighborhood and that the requested variances are therefore minor in nature. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll hear from the one neighbor. Also note that forestry, perhaps they were looking for a refusal of the application. I guess it's impact on a tree.
Yeah, sure. I can speak to the forestry comments now if you want.
Sure.
So as mentioned earlier, we removed variance number 1, which they objected to, and variance number 2, which they also objected to, has been reduced. So as a result, these changes have reduced the impact on the spruce tree that they were concerned about. So actually, if you wouldn't mind scrolling to the existing site plan, so we can bring that up. Thank you. So you can see there, kind of the corner of the existing house. There's a small corner that already falls within that tree protection zone. And now if you could please scroll to the proposed site plan on the next page. So you can see there we've almost, the footprint of the proposed house almost corresponds exactly with the footprint of the existing dwelling. And so this represents only 4% of the tree production zone of that area as being encroached upon by the house. So we've reduced that considerably from what was originally proposed and what urban forestry would have originally reviewed. So the impact on that tree would be, I think, fairly minimal, and certainly no greater than what currently exists. And lastly, like, we recognize that as part of the building permit process that we would need to apply for a forestry permit anyway. And at this point, we'd be more than happy to engage with urban forestry further to adhere to any conditions that they set forth and satisfy any concerns that they have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hayden. I'll just point out, I guess, that we have 2 letters of support, one from the neighbor on the other side, 62, as well as from 16 Chimney Swift Court. And again, we had the neighbor on the other side who was supposed to speak but is not here with us. And you're, there's the 2 transportation conditions, which I assume you're okay with.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah, we are.
So does anyone have any panel members have any questions for Mr. Hayden before we move on to the one neighbor? Okay, so Mariam Alefi Kermali at 5 Duncairn Drive. Is that Adam? Do we have that person on the line? And Lisa?
Hi, sorry, I'm here. I have no
Okay.
questions.
Welcome. I see you're located in the street behind, and you
Yeah.
looks like you're one house over. It looks like number 3 is directly behind the subject property, so you're one house over in number. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome. Why don't we hear from you as your concerns? You have up to 5 minutes to let us know what your issues are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any concerns.
Okay, you don't wish to make any submissions? You were just
Correct.
here.
No
You
submissions.
just wanted
I
to
just
listen
wanted
in? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay. Okay, Mr. Hayden, nothing to respond to then. I had a quick question. What magic did you pull to reduce your coverage to bring it down to eliminate that variance? It was like in the 40s or something. Where is it here? Yeah.
Yeah, so previously we had a very large rear deck.
Okay.
We reduced that and then also just overall reduced the size of the house.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because it went from, we were at 0.41 and now you're complying, so that's a big change. Okay, so that's a good explanation for how you did that. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Hayden, or is someone ready to weigh in with the motion? I guess we have the urban forestry, and in lieu of that, I guess we have an alternative, other conditions. But anyone like to weigh in with any comments or just a motion? We're in committee. Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Chair, I find the requested variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 2 and the transportation department conditions.
Okay, thank you. Seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion. Wow, a tie. Okay, Ms. McCluskey, hands went up at the same time, so I guess it's unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Hayden, and have a great day. And we'll move on to
Thank you.
item number 5, which is 1 Kingsway Crescent. And again, on this application, which is always a good sign, or we have a revised yellow notice sheet. In this case, there were 13 variances. There are now 12, and one other, the height has been reduced slightly as well. That's variance number 5. We have on this application, in addition to all the materials we normally get, which I don't mention in my presentation or my introduction, we have an applicant's presentation, arborist supporting material, and an arborist report, covering letter, planning report. Forestry was requesting a deferral and then a denial, as well as we have a TRCA and ravine correspondence and 5 letters of support. Okay, the planning report we have is for information. So, and we have the speakers on this application. Only one speaker, the agent, Jim Pfeiffer. Welcome, Mr. Pfeiffer.
Good morning. So we did present a booklet, and if you can just bring that up, I'll just speak, I guess, to the concerns that forestry had. Since, as you mentioned, the owner, who's a long-term resident of the neighborhood, did some pretty extensive outreach in the neighborhood. We got those letters of support. The planner was in support or not objecting to anything that we were asking for, given the changes that we had made. So as you can see, we've designed, a Tudor-style house, which is very much in keeping, I think, with the character of the neighborhood. We've reduced the height by a little bit in conjunction with the planner. The balconies at the back are kind of recessed. They look out, obviously, over the river. We are asking for a small side yard setback variance, but that actually isn't to the house, but it's to a little corner of the barbecue that you can see in this site plan here. If you go just 2 pages down, you can see this is a plan that we prepared after we saw the report from forestry. And this has been a long process. We submitted plans to both ravines and the TRCA back in February. And in April, we submitted plans to forestry, and we didn't hear anything until the submission deadline here. But what we've done here is that red area, that's the tree protection zone of the one tree which forestry has expressed concerns about. And then there's a red line that cuts across the plan, and that is the as of right front yard setback. And the arborist took a look at this, and he submitted a letter to the committee, which you have in front of you, which basically says that even without that variance, if you built a house here as of right, there would still be enough of that house, even without accounting for excavation and a front yard porch or a front porch and whatnot, there would still be enough impact on that tree protection zone that that tree would likely not survive an as of right construction at that front yard setback. Behind the house, you can see all of those are ravine trees, and we're taking great steps to preserve those ravine trees, including moving the house forward on the lot from the ravine and natural feature protection zone. And even while we're moving the house forward, we're going to be leaving some of the foundation of the existing house to ensure that those trees aren't impacted. And we're actually preserving all of the sort of existing porch, patio, and whatnot that's in the backyard. As I mentioned, the owners of the house have been living here for a long time. So that, I think, kind of addresses the fact that that tree would be removed by an as of right build anyways. The reason we're moving the house forward is to stay out of the top of bank feature of the TRCA, and also, not to impact these ravine trees, which are also quite significant at the back of the house. So I'm happy to take any questions about any of the other variances.
Okay, Mr. Pfeiffer, thank you very much for that presentation. We have your presentation on the panel, so you can scroll down. We do have other photos of the house. And then I guess the main factors you're saying, notwithstanding that as of your arborist has stated that even to build as of right, that this tree would be impacted.
That's correct.
Okay, so committee members, any questions for Mr. Pfeiffer, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm going to move approval, subject to urban forestry condition number 2. And I just want to note for people that might be listening and might not understand why we're approving a house that's almost double the GFA. As the planning department advised, that's because of the top of bank calculation that's used. And in fact, if the entire property ownership was considered, this house would be within the permitted GFA. So yeah, I find the application meets the 4 tests, and again, move approval subject to urban forestry condition 2.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. McCloskey, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. We'll see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon.
You too, and the rest of the morning. Okay, the next application is item number 6 for DEERHURST Avenue. Again, we have a revised notice sheet. Always a good sign to show that there are changes made in response to concerns. In this case, there were 4 variances. There are now 3. The coverage variance has been eliminated, and 2 of the other variances have been reduced. On this application, we only have 1 speaker, the agent, Lena Rodriguez. And this is to construct a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling and a new rear covered deck. And we have photos and a map and an arborist report submitted by the applicant. We have 8 letters of support, and Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 2. Perhaps we can get up on the board on each application. It's nice to get, so we don't have to look at our faces, to get the applications up and get the drawings. Thank you, Lisa, for being proactive on that. Ms. Rodriguez, welcome.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lena, and my address is 504 Perth Avenue.
Okay, I don't believe we need an application on the a presentation on this application. We have no neighbors or in opposition, and it's self-explanatory. We have the what you've sent, if we can see the pictures. So perhaps would you like to advise the committee of anything, or can I just see if panel members have any questions for you? Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Do we lose you? I don't think we need a presentation. Would you like to just advise the committee of anything before I see if there's any questions?
Yeah, yes, this is a proposal to construct a 2nd-story addition to the existing dwelling and a new rear covered deck. So to comply with the lot coverage that was erased, variance number 1, we reduce the size of the deck to less than 5% that is allowed not to be included in the lot coverage. So that way we now comply with the lot coverage. Also, the planning had advised us to increase the side yard setback on the north sideline to 1.2. And then thereby reducing the, moving back the wall and reducing the size of the bedrooms and the area there. So the south sideline also becomes 1.55, but the existing, that is the existing south sideline also, that is 0.95 right now. So the platform, which is the new rear deck, covered deck, will be in line with the existing building, no projection. That becomes 1.55 from the north side lot line.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any questions for Ms. Rodriguez? Or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion to approve the application. I consider it minor in nature and meets the 4 tests. Subject to, do we have any forestry?
Yeah, I think item number,
Subject
condition 2.
Forestry, condition number 2.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McCluskey, for that motion, seconded by Ms. Alderson. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thanks. The next application is item number 7, 65 Hardwick Court. It's an application to construct a second-story addition above the existing dwelling and a new two-story west side addition. There are 4 variances. We have supporting material, which perhaps Annalisa, we can get up on the screen, from Mr. Romano, and we have an opposition from 12 Sagamore Crescent. Registered to speak is not that neighbor, but the neighbor on either side at 67 and 63 Hardwick Court. So first we'll hear from Mr. Romano, the agent.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. I did reach out to the neighbor at 67 Hardwick. They will not be joining us. So I spoke with them. They had a couple of concerns related to construction and fencing.
Okay.
I advised that that's not really under the committee's purview, but they will receive a copy of the decision.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Adam. Okay, so Mr. Romano, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Franco Romano here.
Okay.
So I think I'd like to refer to slide 1 first. If staff or Annalisa can bring that up, that'd be great. We don't have slide 1. There we go. Terrific. Thank you kindly. So this is an application that involves an existing lot. It's an existing dwelling on the property, which is an existing bungalow, and you'll see that Hardwood Court in this in front of the subject property is where the street curves. So there's a curvature at the street. So we'll see that nearby dwellings and adjacent dwellings have a radiating building position, and that creates variations in front yard setback measurements. So the proposal for the second story addition in the west, which is at the top of the site plan, second story addition triggers variances that somewhat reflect existing conditions. The front yard setback is similar to the existing, although the front yard setback that the zone examiners identified is to the front veranda because it has a foundation. The side yard setback that's proposed is because of that angled west side lot line. You'll see that it starts closer to the building and then it widens out to over 6 meters on that side of the building. And that's shown on the on that graphic too. I think it's 6.96 meters. So those are 2 variances, number 2 and number 3. So the first variance dealing with floor space index, any dwelling that's going to have a second story in this neighborhood is likely going to trigger a variance. This is a variance of 12.3 square meters. So it's a fairly nominal variance from what, and again, that's a second story addition. So right now the floor space index is just over 20%. In terms of the rear yard landscaping, we're not really sure why this is identified as a variance, but it's identified as a variance to reflect the existing conditions. So there is thank you, slide 2. So slide 2 shows a backyard picture that, as well as air photography. So I've gone back to the early 2000s and seen that this backyard has had a similar condition. So this landscaping zoning standard is post this rear yard condition. The current owners purchased a property in 2013, so after the bylaw came in having a rear yard landscaping performance standard. So they did not alter this. They may have improved some parts of it, but they did not create this rear yard landscaping condition. So I will submit though that this property does have more than the conventional amount of soft landscaping around the entire perimeter of the subject site. The current proposed lot coverage is at 25.7%, which is less than the permitted 33%. You'll see that the building length, the building depth, the building height is all less than what the zoning bylaw permits. The rear yard setback is larger than what the zoning bylaw permits, so you can actually have a smaller rear yard and a corresponding smaller rear yard area. The side yard setback, that one that we saw on slide number 1, that goes from 0.9 to 6.96. You'll see that that is landscaped as well. That is a larger than conventional side yard setback, and it is a larger than conventional landscaped condition. So that also increases the amount of soft landscaping on the property, and the front yard landscaping is in excess of the minimum 50% that's required under the zoning bylaw. So when we take a look at the entire property as a whole, we'll see that there's actually more landscaping on the property than what the, if you counted all the square meters for the entire property.
Okay, would you like to wrap up, Mr. Romano?
One other point that I wanted to make is part of the rear yard that is not being counted as soft landscaping is hardwood deck, which has slats that allows the water to percolate down. So I would submit that there's no unacceptable adverse impacts. The proposal satisfies all 4 tests for minor variance, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Romano before we hear from the neighbor at 63 right next door? Okay, so let's hear from Pat DeLeo at 63 Hardwick.
Hi, I'm Pat DeLeo. I live at 63 Hardwick Court. I'm on the west side of the house that is being altered. And I just want to say I have no issue with somebody improving their home and adding on to it. I realize they have a large family and it's necessary. I just want to make sure that my home is intact after all of this is stuff, all their work is done. And first off, I just want to say the gentleman that was just speaking said that the rear yard has not been altered. That is untrue. That rear yard has been altered quite a bit. About the only thing that has stayed intact is the pool area. They have dug out the back property where it was a bit of a slope, and it was quite close to the pool. So they dug that all out and flattened it. Not a problem. Just saying that it actually has been altered. My concern is that I'm really disappointed that the neighbor has not made any attempt to discuss their plans with us. And they've done a lot of work in and around the house since they moved in. It's, I don't know, probably maybe about 4 or 5 years since they've been there. And really the only time they spoke to us about any of the work they were about to do was when they put a fence between the front area of our houses. And there was a hedge that separated our properties, and they asked if they could remove the hedge and put a fence up. And if I didn't want the hedge removed, they would put the fence up on the other side of the hedge. So that was the only discussion we ever had about anything that they were about to do. So I really would have appreciated a heads up about what was going on now so I could talk to them about my concerns. One of them is that variance of 0.9 meters to the property line, I know is just the edge of their garage. But I'm just a bit concerned about there is going to be a basement under that garage. And when they're digging that foundation, are they going to shore up the...
Ma'am, sorry, committee, we do not deal with construction issues. You'll deal with the building department on that if there's issues, but we deal only with planning concerns. So the built form, once it's built, as opposed to the obvious headaches associated with construction and vibration and all of that, we don't deal with those issues.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just, like I say, I'm concerned about what's going to happen to my property. I mean, they've done previous work and it has been done, the work itself is nice, but done carelessly because he hit a gas line one time. They took down our internet line one time.
Again,
the
ma'am,
cabana.
at the outset, I say please confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. That again is a line of that we don't really deal with.
Okay. All right.
So just the planning concerns which you've told us about, the impact on your property, and the built form of what they're proposing here with this addition, these additions.
Oh, okay, and with it being so close to the property line, are they, like, I don't know if this is where I say this, but are they going to need to use my property to do the work? Because it's so close?
Yeah, not without permission. Mr. Romano can respond in his rebuttal, but those are, again, issues that we don't deal with. Without consent, obviously, they can't come onto your property.
Okay.
So, yep.
Right, well, that's just
So you're
my-
saying, I'd like, Mr., you're saying that at no time did the neighbor, did the homeowner or his representative come to you to let you know or show you plans or ask you any questions?
No.
Or at least show you what they were doing? You just got notice of this?
No.
You got the application?
I got the notification, and yeah, that was it.
Okay. Okay, thank you, ma'am. We'll hear back from Mr. Romano. We'll respond to your issues and concerns. Unless anyone, does any of the panel members have any questions for Ms. DeLeo before we move on? Okay, Mr. Romano. Franco? Is he there?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just unmuted right now. So I will impress upon the owner to reach out to the neighbor. I was not aware that they were not consulted, and I'm not the applicant on this file, so I've come late to this proceeding. So I would have certainly impressed the owner to discuss their plans with the neighbors, and I'm certain that I will impress upon them to let them know when the building permit is being applied for and when construction is going to occur. There's going to be no interference with anybody or any neighbor's property for purposes of construction. And that 0.9 meters is just at that pinch point. So it's at the pinch point of the foundation of that garage. And yes, there is a basement under that garage, so there'll be a gym, but that's still underneath the footings. So in terms of the disruption, the city's building permit process will require that there will be hoarding provided around the perimeter of the property, and I notice that there is fencing there right now on that side. So that is that will also ensure that the construction will occur only on private property. And again, my review of aerial photography and property mapping shows that that rear yard is substantially in the soft landscaping condition that it is today. I understand through the neighbor that they've seen some digging or whatnot that may have occurred in the back, but that hasn't, from what I've seen, altered the soft landscaping condition in the backyard. So subject to any questions, sir, I still submit that the application satisfies all 4 tests for minor variance and creates no unacceptable adverse impacts.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Romano. Any questions for Mr. Romano? Is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
I'm happy to weigh in with a motion unless the panelists have any other questions. I believe this meets the 4 tests. We've had no comments from any other city departments that I'm aware of, so I'm happy to make a motion for approval.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for Ms. Alderson's motion, Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Romano.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you to the neighbor as well. And hopefully your neighbor or their representatives will be in touch with you, at least with respect to, construction issues and issues of that nature, as Mr. Romano has undertaken to request his client do. Okay, the next application is item number 8, 36 Swan Avenue. This is an application for a second-story west side addition. There are 4 variances. No, sorry, there's only one variance. There's only one variance, and it is less than 3 square meters, or they wouldn't have to be here. Bruno Lopez is the agent. Welcome, Mr. Lopez. We have a copy of a site-specific zoning bylaw on this. Just to let you know, we have nothing on this application. No comments from neighbors or from city staff, and the whole variance is less than 3 meters squared.
Yes, morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Yes, we try hard to not come here, but we couldn't run from these little 3 meters. So it's very straightforward application, is within the envelope, and yeah, we try hard. We work with the zoning examiner. We try A and B and C, and there was no other way.
Wow. Okay. Big issue for 3 square meters, less than 3 square meters. Committee members, can I get a motion? And there's no urban forestry or anything on this.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve. Consider the application quite minor in nature and no issues.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McCluskey, seconded by Ms. Alderson. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Big surprise. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, our next application is item number 9, 83 Smithwood Drive. That's an application to construct a second-story addition above the existing dwelling. There are 5 variances. We have revised plans, but we're advised that those plans do not change the variances, and planning is requesting, in the event of approval, a condition of approval, that it be constructed as illustrated on the front west elevation plan relating to the building height, dated August 6th. 2 letters of support. And I think we have a planning report noting that the majority of the proposed height complies, and that it's only, the variance is only for a small portion of the dwelling. Speaker is Craig Reitz.
Yes, thank you. Craig Ritz, I'm the agent for the owners at CR Design Studio. Good morning and thank you for your time. As you mentioned, we do have 2 letters of support. It's both adjacent neighbors, so one being number 81, the other being number 85 Smithwood. We are aware of the staff report from community planning, as you mentioned, and with respect to their comments on proposed height and lot coverage, these certainly seem to dovetail with our thoughts as to why these items are minor in nature. With respect to the proposed building height, as you noted again, planning's commented that variance is required for a small part of the sloped roof. Maybe if we could just pull up the front elevation if possible.
Annalisa, front elevation, please.
Yes,
It's item 9. You're at 13. Wrong application. You're at number 13. We're at number 9. We're on number 9, 83 Smithwood. There we go.
Yeah, if we just get the front elevation, that'd be great. So as you can see, just a portion of sloped roof which extends above the line of allowable height, which we've noted. This portion of roof is non-compliant. It's only 15% of the total roof that's non-compliant. And as requested in the staff report, we have no issue at all with any approval being directly tied to the submitted elevations. Further to the planning report, the comments acknowledge that as relates to lot coverage, that the dwelling itself only covers 29% of the lot area. And in terms of the addition, the proposed second story does not increase the existing building footprint. The increased lot coverage is actually due to the proposed deck on the interior of the lot, which is behind the garage. This is uncovered, and then also required in the coverage number was the existing wood deck at the rear of the house, which is only 1 step up from grade. So it's those 2 items that actually push the coverage number above what's allowed. And the proposed deck behind the garage would have a 6'6" privacy screen, as noted on the drawings. And this space is currently completely covered in unit paving, so there would be no reduction of soft landscaping with the addition of this element. And as we mentioned earlier, the neighbor directly adjacent from this deck at number 81 be the only one even possibly impacted by this, and they've provided a letter of support.
Okay, thank you.
Further,
no, go ahead.
Yeah. A few other things I can speak to if you like on floor space index. We did do a research request, found that many dwellings on Smithwood Drive have been approved with FSIs greater than 60%, one being as high as 71%. So we certainly feel that with the proposed FSI of 57%, that we're certainly in keeping with the existing context of the neighborhood. And just quickly on items 3 and 4 related to soffit height and height of main walls, these items are essentially one and the same. We were able to just look at the north elevation quickly. You'll be able to see that it's just a middle portion of this elevation, just so you can see directly, sorry, just on the north elevation. There's just a portion of the eave that we've raised up, and it's actually generated the 7.64 meter dimension that's noted for the variance for both eave height and top of main wall. And this was just done essentially for construction purposes to simplify that roof framing. If we were to maintain a continuous eave with the rest of the roof structure, which is consistent around the entire dwelling, other than in this location, it would create a much larger roof overhang. Framing wise, just aesthetically would look a little awkward. And given that this portion of the roof is inset significantly behind the main roof, which is actually inset about over 15 feet, which you can see in the floor plans for the site plan, this would have no impact on the streetscape whatsoever, as it's completely.
Yeah, can you wrap up, sir, please? Please wrap up.
Yeah, lastly, I would just.
You're okay with urban forestry condition number 1?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, just wrap up if you'd like.
Yeah, lastly, just as far as the soffit height, the rest of the dwelling, the soffit height, there's just a slight increase, which is pertaining to the old Etobicoke bylaw, and we're asking for a relief of just 0.23 meters or 9 inches. So we certainly believe that that's minor in nature. So thank you again for your time this morning, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reitz. Any questions for Mr. Reitz, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? And we do have the planning condition and urban forestry number 1. Mr. Taylor? Yes, Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
There we go. Yes, Mr. Chair. I find the requested variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 1 and the condition requested by the Community Planning Department.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that motion. Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? Approval is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Reitz. You have your approval of your application.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to item number 10, 77 Church Street. This is to legalize and maintain the additions to the dwelling. There are 4 variances. We have a copy of an order to comply and a, I believe we have supporting materials. Yep. Speaker for this application
Mr.
is...
Mr. Chair, I have a quick, Mr. Chair, I have a quick question. I'm just wondering if we might take a 5 or a 10-minute break at this point in the morning.
How about we do it after this application? I was going to suggest that, but let's
Sure.
get this one done. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so this is legalize and maintain. Mr. Romano is the speaker on this application. There's no other speakers registered.
Yes, good morning. Yeah. Sir, if that presentation slide can be brought up, it helps inform the nature of the building additions. So, and while that is being brought up, I'll just briefly say that this is to permit an additional 14.4 square meters of gross floor area. And they are represented by 2 second-story additions. It's a corner lot. And the order to comply was basically dealing with the installation of interior drains, framing of the house, installation of HVAC, and part of the excavation. So that was issued in August of 2020. The owner ceased construction, obtained the architect, submitted for building permit in February, and these are the variances that were identified as part of the zoning review. So the 14.4 square meters of gross floor area brings the floor space index from 0.53 to 0.56. And we'll see that the front yard setback and the two north side yard setbacks are all existing conditions. But when you take a look at the dwelling, and I'm not sure if you can see the presentation slide, because my screen says that it's starting to share content, so there must be some computer glitch. It's basically the second story front addition is extending that shed dormer over top of the garage. And the side second story addition is over top of almost like that shed-like appendage or mudroom appendage off to the side of the house. So these have no adverse impacts on the public realm or on any neighboring property. And submit that it satisfies all four tests for a minor variance.
Okay,
Subject to any questions, sir?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Romano. Any questions for Mr. Romano? Is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
There we go.
Yeah, better late than never.
I have a quick question. So did they just think they could go ahead and build this without a building permit? Is that what happened?
I think they saw that it was pretty small, like the extension of the dormer and that second story was that they felt it did not need a building permit. But clearly they were not aware that it already exceeded, the property already exceeded the floor space index or the GFA. So they would have needed a variance. They just weren't aware of that.
Any other questions for Mr. Romano? And if none, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Just one more question. Is that entrance on the side, I believe that's on the east side of the building, is that entrance to a secondary suite or to the basement, or is it just a side entrance?
That side entrance goes down to the basement, yes.
Okay, and is there currently a secondary suite in the basement? Do you know?
There is a basement secondary suite in there, yes.
Okay.
Okay, someone ready to weigh in with a motion unless there's additional questions? Mr. Taylor, sorry, we're hard to see that your hand's up.
Yeah. Sorry. No problem. Yeah, I find the requested variances meet the four tests under the Planning Act, and I move for approval without conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that motion. Ms. McCluskey, all in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Romano, and we will now take a 10-minute break. We have a particularly long morning this morning, and I note that our afternoon session starts at 2:30 instead of the typical 1 o'clock. So we will come back and we'll be doing applications 11 through till 20, with item obviously 13 has been deferred. So we'll stand adjourned for 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Next application is item number 11, 20 Mitcham Drive. It's an application to construct a two-story east side addition. The existing detached garage will be demolished. There are two variances. We have on this application a request for deferral from transportation. They say there's a possible encroachment over the public right-of-way sidewalk, and that has not been legalized. And they said that the deck, I believe, it doesn't match the existing condition on site. We have on this application as well, in the additional materials, the covering letter from the applicant and the petition and 5 letters of support. And we have they're addressing transportation concerns, and there are revisions, but they don't change the variances. So we have to deal with the issue of transportations. I guess the applicant can address that. The applicant is Sergi Gidegora. And we do have a letter of concern and letters of support as well. Perhaps we can get the transportation memo up on the board at the outset for the applicant to address that. We have an issue. Okay, is Sergey Gidegora there, the applicant or agent?
Yes.
Welcome, sir. Good morning.
Yes, yes, good morning or good afternoon already. Hello?
Yep.
You hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for the opportunity of owners to represent their property. So the property is housing the family of 4. It's a small, with a grandfather living with them. There's a small bungalows, just over 700 square foot in footprint, and the necessity of addition is obvious and a long time overdue. So they decided to move forward with building, proposing a 2-story addition to the house. But the problem here is that it's a corner lot, and with the corner lot, basically everything is in reverse here. So the address is from MITCHAM Drive. The front entrance and front elevation is from MITCHAM Drive, but the frontage is considered to be from the Norfolk Drive, which is the west side. So the only way for this addition to happen is to remove the garage and remove the existing driveway from east side of the house to the west side, because we still consider it's a side of the house. So there is only way, and obviously we are in variance here for the parking being in front yard now. So, but yes, and we have just 2 variances: the parking and side landscaping area, which we cannot change because now the new entrance is proposed to move towards the west, and the porch and the side landscaping will be actually the landing in front of the porch. So that's the variance we can change, but the parking, it's we think it's still it's only way for us to go with parking there. And a transportation report was issued on August 20th, which is like four business days before hearing. But still, we managed to, like, in the same day, I basically replied with a revised site plan. I added the notes to the site plan stating that we are reinstating the grass and sidewalk and curb where the existing driveway is, and then creating a splay, 10 by 10 feet splay from the fence to the parking spot. So basically, we are satisfying all the requests of the transportation. And to comment on the fence encroachment, it's only very minor. It's like from 0.1 meter to 0.3 meter. It's been built when we didn't have, the owners didn't have a survey. They only ordered survey right now for the Committee of Adjustment, and it appears to be on the survey that they have encroached, but without any without any intent. Anyway, and then to conclude that we have yeah, and the other reason that it's good to have the parking there, because it creates a possibility to make a ramp for the elderly grandfather that lives there, which uses a wheelchair on a regular basis. And since the parking and the main entrance now remote from each other, then it's possible to create a ramp, which is also very, very beneficial and something that really needs to be done there. And then to conclude, I just wanted to notify that there are, in this neighborhood, there are some properties that have exact same situation, and the parking is exactly where we propose. Like, for instance, today I have uploaded the photos, asked Annalisa kindly to upload the file, the photos from the one, what's the one, Eltham Street Drive. If possible, you may want to have a look. Exactly same situation and exactly same driveway, just in front of intersection. Is it possible to look at that photos?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I received that this morning and I advised that it was too late for me to
Yeah, that's
upload.
not part of our package,
Yeah, it's
sir.
not part, yeah.
We haven't seen that. We got additional materials, but there is a hard cutoff date, so we don't have those, and the members haven't seen it. So if you could also, you're
okay,
over the 5 minutes, if you could please wrap up your presentation.
Yeah, basically I'm done. Yes, it's the addition is very, very modest and is in line with the building and the roof line, so no issues should be there. But just the parking is our big concern, and the request for you to approve. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, before I turn it over, I have a question. So can we, and that's leave for Secretary Treasurer, can please weigh in on this as well. So the fact that states in the last paragraph of the transportation letter, it is noted that a portion of the existing fence will be retained partially encroaches into the abutting public right-of-way. Based on available information, it appears that this encroachment has not been legalized through enactment of an encroachment agreement. The proponent must submit an application to Transportation Services for approval of the subject encroachment, which may require council approval. So the question for you and for staff is, if we proceed to approve that, is that still required? And can we proceed on that basis, approving it subject to that, which you would perhaps need council approval? So Ms. Bartosik, is that a correct interpretation, that they would still have to deal with?
Yes, so unless the applicant agrees to just remove that fence now, and that can be a condition, they may have an issue because it does require council approval.
Yes, we definitely would like to agree and to fix the fence. It's a very easy fix.
Okay, so you acknowledge that you will require to make application to Transportation Services to legalize the enactment of an encroachment agreement, and that would be a condition of this approval.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Panel members, any questions for the agent, or is someone ready for a motion?
Just a matter of correction. It is a 1.5-story building, not a
Yes.
bungalow.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it is a 1.5 story. Yes, correct.
Is that in the purpose of the application, or does it require us to make some change, or? It says to construct a two-story east
Just
side
for the,
addition.
just for the record, it was reported that it was a bungalow. It is actually a 1.5 story, that's all.
Sorry, my mistake. It's yeah, it's
okay.
So if a condition is contemplated, it can say the applicant shall either remove the existing fence or apply for an encroachment agreement to the satisfaction of transportation services.
Thank you, Ms. Bartosik. Okay, committee members, any last follow-up questions, or is someone ready to make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm just considering some of the other comments that transportation made. Sightline issue with the wooden fence, the sidewalk location being incorrect. The sidewalk must be continued across the driveway. The erection of a 3-meter splay fence, plus the encroachment agreement. Could we not have a broader condition that approved subject to the satisfaction of any and all requirements of the transportation department? Just so that we don't miss anything. Because I think it's more than just the encroachment agreement that's at issue here.
It can't be that vague, but we can do something more tailored to what is brought up in the report.
Excuse me, can I speak?
Yeah, we might as well get, what's your, I guess we're sort of in committee, but I'll
Yeah.
let you make a comment there if you can assist us.
Well,
Mr. Kitagoria?
we have a
Please
yes,
let
yes.
us know.
We have resubmitted the site plan, including all the notes from transportation, and actually revised the drawings. So we are going to satisfy all those requirements except the one about the encroachment, which we didn't know ourselves until we got the survey done. So if that's the if that helps, like I resubmitted the site plan on August 26th, I guess. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
looking at there are nodes R2. If you see nodes R2, those are exactly to satisfy transportation comments.
I guess unfortunately, I guess from my perspective is, sounds like you've been quite busy in the last 7 days, but what we have before us is in my mind, quite a concerning memo from transportation outlining a number of areas that they sought clarification for. Notwithstanding that many of these issues may well have been resolved, I can only deal with what's before me. So again, I'll go back and I think I heard my answer. If we approve this with a general condition about subject to the satisfaction of the transportation department, would that be legitimate, okay, implementable, etc.?
Ms. Bartosik?
That's a little on the big side, perhaps a condition that states the applicant shall address and satisfy the concerns raised in the transportation services memo dated.
Yeah.
So that way it's not open-ended to any and all wishes like that they may ask.
Yeah, so but yet it'll deal with more than just the encroachment issue. So that's Mr. Taylor's issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that your motion?
Yeah, so unless anybody else has any questions or comments, I'm prepared to move on this.
Okay.
So I'm going to move approval on the grounds that the variance is requested meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. And the approval I'm recommending would be subject to a condition that subject to approval of the development planning and review area 2 manager memo dated August 19th, 2021 be satisfied.
Okay, thank you. Second for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. Alderson, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kitagora.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, the next application is item number 12, 16 Newbridge Road. It's an application to maintain the existing parking deficiency. There are 4 variances. And we have a copy of a revised site plan cover letter. We have a previous decision from 2011. This lot was created by a severance. Planning is recommending refusal, and transportation is recommending deferral or refusal if not deferred. The speaker, the applicant is Mark Naroki, the agent for the applicant.
Yes, good afternoon, committee members. My name is Mark Naroki. I'm representing the owner as the agent for this application. I wanted to clarify for the committee that the site plan that was submitted for this minor variance application already demonstrated that we were able to satisfy the accessible parking requirements. The 2 handicap parking requirements on the front parking are shown in the revised site plan. And the original site plan that was submitted for the application. Furthermore, the number of parking spaces that are allowed in the front yard and side yard is not 19, but rather 13. So that variance would remain, but with a lesser number of 13. Finally, just wanted to mention that with the discussion with planning department notifying me and further discussion, we discussed the landscaping strip that's required across the front of this building. Now, over the years prior to the owner purchasing this building, much of the landscaping has been eroded through parking and paving and doing all sorts of things. This is very typical in the area. It's typical across the street from this industrial building, and actually very much the same along Newbridge as development happens and people renovate their buildings. However, in keeping with the intent of the landscaping strip, we went back to the owner and discussed it with him, and he's willing to increase the amount of landscaping. And this is what's been shown here in this site plan that you see in front of you. The green actually showing the additional landscaping that's to be added to this proposal. There was never no landscaping. There was always some landscaping, but we are now doing as much as we can by keeping as much parking, providing for the handicap parking spots, and also providing for the landscaping strip.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Do committee members have any questions, and specifically with the request for deferral from transportation and the request for refusal from community planning? So you're saying that over time in industrial areas, obviously the landscape strips get eroded, they get paved over, there's salt, there's whatever. But I guess, as you say, as different owners of industrial buildings there or improve their properties, then they can fix that up. So are you saying you're prepared to deal with that, or like how do you respond to the comments?
Yes, this revised site plan will be executed.
Okay, so and Madam Secretary Treasurer, that the reference to that site plan, can that be a condition, the revised site plan? I guess if one of the members feels that this application is supportable, that it would be based on tying it to the revised site plan dated August 19th?
Yes, and the applicant's identified in his letter that the variances haven't changed, so it can be to that site, the revised site plan.
Okay, thank you. So panel members, any questions for the agent or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion on this application?
Just a quick question. Was the fact that it's an 8-minute bus ride from the Kipling subway station taken into account when there was discussion about a parking deficiency?
Well, the owner is set up a work-related occupancy here in this building, and a lot of the owners, a lot of the tenants actually drive to their location. They drive for a very short period of time. They either unload in their storage compartments for whatever they're doing, and then take off again. There are very few that are actually remaining on site.
Okay.
So it's was not a serious issue.
Okay. Well, I'm just wondering if it was taken into consideration at all, because it would mean that you wouldn't necessarily have to have all those parking spots. But anyway, thanks for clarification.
Any further questions, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think key to me on this application is that the purpose is to maintain an existing parking deficiency. So there's no proposal to exacerbate a sort of a negative situation. It's maintaining an existing situation. So I would move for approval subject to compliance with the revised site plan dated August 19th, 2021.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Second for Mr. Taylor's motion. Okay, Ms. Alderson, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, committee.
Thank you, Mr. Naraki. Okay, item number 13 has been deferred, so we'll move over to item number 14, 26 Hill Garden Road. This is for additions, specifically a one-story rear addition, a complete second-story addition that will include a rear balcony, a new front porch, and a rear yard deck. There are 4 variances. We have opposition letter from 28 Hill Garden, both in our regular and again in our additional materials, and that's all we have. And registered to speak is the agent Frank Bellini, as well as the neighbor at 28. Mr. Bellini, welcome. Mr. Bellini? You may have to unmute yourself, or... Mr. Bellini? Do we have him on the line, or just...
Yes, sorry.
Oh, good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
Okay, I just introduced your application.
Hello.
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 Keep talking. Mr. Bellini? I guess, I don't know.
Yes. Hello. Hello.
I can hear him.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes. Okay, Frank, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Frank Bellini. I'm representing the owners at 26.
Mute him on there.
At 26.
Mute him on there. All right, sorry, Frank, go ahead.
Should I leave the event?
Yeah, mute the event on your end as well.
Okay.
Okay, Frank, you can go ahead.
Okay. My name is Frank Bellini. I'm the agent for the owners and also did the design work for the building or the proposed addition. Just wanted to know, let you know that based on what is happening in the area, there's a lot of additions happening, 2-story, similar to what we're proposing. And I think that our areas are in keeping with what's happening in the area. The other thing is the second point with respect to the length. We feel that the 0.3 over is very minor. When you look at it, includes the proposed rear balcony. As far as the height, what's required is 7.2 meters, and we're proposing 7.56 around the site, except for the buttresses that we're proposing, which is over the required height. Had the buttress, it's just an architectural feature. It's in the middle of the building, which won't cause any shade to the neighboring properties. And had we called it a chimney, there would be no variance there. The other point with respect to the clear story window, it's in the middle of the building. It will only cause or cast a shadow to the existing building itself and not to the neighbors. So therefore, we feel it's minor. All the setbacks are maintained around the site. The proposed landscape complies with the requirements of the bylaw. The other part, with respect to the balcony, we understand that some people, number 28 has a concern, and we don't mind proposing a privacy screen on each side of the proposed balcony if necessary. That's all I have to say. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellini. So any questions before we move on to the neighbor who's written a letter at 28 Hill Garden? That's all we have. We don't have any communication from city departments on this application.
Frank, sorry. I don't
So-
think any of the
Is Beta Petula?
okay, so I'm
on the line.
gonna hang up with you, Frank. You can listen to the neighbor and then
Beta Petula?
Petula.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Beata Petula, 28 Hill Garden. I just would like to bring to your attention that I have not ever been approached by the owners, the new owners that just had purchased that house a year ago with regards to the renovations project. So that was quite a surprise for me. And I thank you so much for the letter. And I would like to inform you also that on the other side of my house, which is the west side of the house, there is a construction going on. This is 30 Hill Garden Road, and it's right beside my house. If I'm gonna agree with the other construction, I will be in the middle of the two constructions, which means noise, dirt, dust, etc. The other part of it is that the street is very little. That's our actual court. It has it's a dead end. All the tracks with regards to the construction, they have to turn all around, and that's a little street. This is double as I am experiencing right now. Now with COVID, I do work from home, and if I have a construction going on, being approved by you on the same time from both sides, from the frontage of my house. That is gonna be very important because all the trucks, all the waste bins are gonna go through it, and that's a lot of noise with regards to those trucks. This is not cars, this is trucks, and please know this is a little court. It's called road. That road goes down the hill. If that big object is gonna be approved, there will be a lot of problems for the owners down the street with regards to the drainage. And whatever is within the bylaws that it's stated, I am not opposing the construction of the house. Issue that I brought up in my letter, it's my lawsuit about my tree that I would like to take special care about this. Because I'm in the middle of a private lawsuit. That tree needs on the side of the west side, when the construction is gonna take place, needs to be protected. If anything comes with this, then I do not know what I'm gonna do because it's in the middle. So, and my letter states that issue as well. With regards to the height of that object, because that's not even a home, this is an office building. That's an office building that doesn't even have a character to this street. Having a farmhouse and more farmhouses. The farmhouse, which is a historical house, it's down the street on Hill Garden. And this, we should keep that character of that street. And there is more farmhouses around the area, which is very close by. It's one on Yorkley and one on Fremont. I think we should preserve the history and act accordingly with the appearance, whatever we bought the houses with. The office building, it doesn't belong here. It is residential, but it has a look, a contemporary style that it does not match the character of the street. The height of that object, because I will never call it a house. This height of this object is extreme. This is on my east side. East side of my house has all my rooms. On the west side is my garage. So on the east side, I do depend on the light. Even if the story, second story is permitted, that's fine, but go within the bylaws. Why should you have it higher and deprive me from the daylight even more? I live here since 2004. I have everything established, including my backyard. So my house is gonna suffer from it. Basically, it's gonna become a cave, having another house on the west side that has been approved by the Committee of Adjustment. It would even not paying attention.
Yeah, could you please wrap
my
up, ma'am? You're at the 5-minute mark. If you could please sum up your submission, please. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to know if any underpinning of the basement is undergoing, because I did see something coming out that it has nothing to do with the land. Number two, if you take a plan, okay, you take a plan and you see the basement floor. There is what they call it, a future cold storage. How come it's not being indicated as an addition, except for the addition that they already have? Why do we have 5 minutes and all the agents speaking to you have more time? Could you please consider me? My English is second language. I had to prepare myself to talk to big guys like you. And this is my time. Please consider my issues. If you have questions, I'll be more happy to say it. You have my letter indicated the windows, not only balconies, because those balconies are going to be supported by the structure that they call it future cold storage. Future cold storage requires excavation. So this is addition to the house. So this is not patio, what they have on the first floor, and the second floor, the balcony. This is addition to the house that is not indicated on the plans. So I would like to address it as much as underpinning and why all that work was done during the winter time with lots of garbage bins with that.
Okay,
soil
ma'am, I'm gonna
and
have
the
to ask you
clay.
to, I'm gonna have to ask you to really wrap up. You're at
Please
6
do.
minutes and 30 seconds, and I don't give applicants more time than neighbors. So I've given you an additional 1.5 minutes. We understand your concerns.
I
And we'll
thank you
have,
so much for your
okay, so well, and you did great. I don't know, English is your second language. You did an amazing job, your letter and your presentation, so no worries about that.
Yeah, I would like you to consider that. To
Okay.
construction, how would you like to live
Ma'am,
between to construction and working?
Okay,
Yeah, I
ma'am.
know you for the bylaws, not for the people code, but I'm a person, I'm alive.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
not an object. Please
Okay, ma'am.
consider that. It's
Okay,
cost.
so can I just get in a word? The committee does not deal with construction-related issues. It's rather unfortunate that you're gonna have construction, maybe not, I don't know how soon they're gonna wrap up on the other side, but if you have construction on two sides, the committee cannot deal with that. We just deal with the built form of the final product. We don't
Can
deal
you
with
please do
underpinning and
something that
basements.
I cannot?
Can you just please
Yeah,
mute
I
her?
don't
Can
want
you
to have
please,
two
can
at
you
the
mute
same
the
time.
can you mute the neighbor? Thank you. So all I'm saying to you, ma'am, we don't deal with construction. Obviously, if you have concerns when there's construction going on one side or on both, you can deal with 311, deal with the building department, but the committee only deals with the built form, unfortunately. So we don't deal with underpinning of basements, and we don't deal with construction-related issues. And I commiserate with you if you're gonna have construction going on two sides, but that is, that is not in our control. I don't know when they're gonna plan on getting started. The other one might be finished or not, and I certainly sympathize, but that's not something the committee can take into consideration in their deliberation here. So let's go back to Mr. Bellini. Can you please respond to the concerns of the neighbor? And, or does anyone, before we do that, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Petula?
I just have a comment for Beata. While I appreciate the fact that she's working from home, like most of us are now working from home, it looks to me like your house has been updated since you bought it, and you had every right to do that. Well, the people on either side of you also have that right to update their homes. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson. Mr. Bellini?
Okay, Frank, go ahead.
Are you back on the line?
Okay, forgive me, but I didn't hear anything. So if you can help me and just tell me the concerns of the, I believe it's a lady who's
You were
objecting.
watching on WebEx. Basically, she has some concerns, which I would hope that you could address with her. Construction-related basement underpinning issues. I don't know if no one has approached her. The new neighbor did not even speak to her about this application, so she's quite upset about that. So she's concerned that there is another house on the other side of her that's currently under construction, and we told her that's not our purview.
Hello?
She does have concerns with the substantive, with the shadowing and with the effect on her property. Why, I don't understand. So we had a problem with, see, he's on the phone.
Yeah, but he was listening to it on WebEx, but he just couldn't speak on WebEx, so I was.
Okay, I'm saying, but he now has to respond. I'm not, Ms. Petula spoke for almost 7 minutes, and we're not gonna have her redo that, so.
Yeah, Frank, so just to summarize what the chair said, the neighbor at 26 had some construction-related concerns surrounding underpinning. I think there was a concern surrounding a tree, and she had expressed some concern about a cold cellar. So if you can address those.
Okay. I don't know what concerns are regarding the cold cellar. There's only a cold cellar at the front of the building. There is a small addition at the rear of the garage and to the side. So it essentially maintains the same shape, L shape that was there before. With respect to the trees, we have to protect on the property line a protective fence. If she has a concern about the tree, we have no problem. As far as I know, tree protection didn't mention anything with respect to that tree, but we have no problem providing additional fencing right to the street if necessary.
you know, except for, of course, the sidewalk. And with respect to, I mean, I think that we maintain the existing depth of the existing house with respect to the height. And as I said, we're just 0.36 in height greater than the required as far as the new bylaw. And there, because of the position of the sun, we don't have no issue casting any shade to the neighbor. I think I covered most of it. I don't know if I missed something. If you can let me know, I would be happy to discuss it.
Okay. Committee members, anyone have any questions for Mr. Bellini, the agent, or at this point for even for the neighbor, Ms. Petula, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Yes, I have a question for the agent. He indicated earlier that he was prepared to erect a 1.5 meter tall privacy screen on the proposed deck. To whose benefit would that screen be? Number 28 or 24? Who are you trying to appease with that screen?
Sorry, Frank, you're gonna have to give me a second. I'll tell you when to talk because I have to run. I'm running to the speaker so you can hear, and then I'm running to the microphone so you can talk. So you can go ahead and respond.
Sorry, but
okay, you can go ahead and respond now.
Okay, the screen is mainly, I want to point out, a cover mainly for the neighbor to the east, who has no objection to, by the way, to our proposal, and mostly for his privacy, because the house located to the west, number 28, we are over, I would say, easily 35 feet away from her corner at the rear.
So okay, I understand. Thank you.
Concerns, but we have no problem if we need to put a screen to satisfy her concerns.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, if no one has any comments or questions, I'm prepared to move on this.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I find the variances to be in keeping with the 4 tests under the Planning Act. And I move approval subject to the construction of a 1.5 meter tall privacy screen facing number 24 to the east.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. A seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellini, and thank you, Ms. Petula. Okay, our next application is item number 15. 35 COULES or COULES Court. It's an application to construct a 1-story rear and east side addition that will include an attached garage, a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling, and a rear yard deck. There are 6 variances on this application. Hold on. I think we have urban forestry requesting conditions 1 and 2. We have a revised notice and plans. I believe there are 4 variances. Planning requests that of the 6 variances that 4, 5, and 6 be modified as set out in their memo, and removal of variance number 3. They advise that that's been agreed to by the applicant in principle, but they've not received revised plans and notice of plans. But I believe we now have that in the additional materials, but the time of writing that memo. And we have 11 letters of support. There's only one speaker, the applicant, actually the owner, Tyrone Kozkowski.
Oh, hi, good afternoon. How are you?
We're getting some interference. I don't know if is everyone on mute other than the applicant? Okay, good morning, sirs. Why don't you briefly explain what you're doing here. Are you okay? First of all, also let us know whether you're okay with the planning recommendation or not. And if not, tell us why not.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello?
we can, but there's some interference.
Oh, okay. How about now? Sorry about that. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, but we also hear this. There's a lot of interference. I don't know where it's coming from.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Hi, sorry. If you have multiple devices open, we ask you to close one of them. Do you have multiple devices open?
For WebEx, no.
What about YouTube?
YouTube, no, not for the committee, no.
Okay. Maybe try closing it and coming back. Like exiting the meeting and coming back. That might alleviate it, or try calling in.
Okay, let me try that. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So through you, Mr. Chair, maybe I could suggest going to the next item while...
Yeah, let's stand this one down and we'll go to item number 16. Where the next several applications, actually the rest of the morning, are all matters that have been deferred previously and are coming back on. So the next application is item number 16, 14 Cheshire Drive. We have a yellow sheet with revisions to the application. Perhaps, Annalisa, you can get that up on the screen. There were 4 variances. Variance 4 has been eliminated, and items 1 and 2 have been revised. We have minutes of the previous meeting. It was deferred in order to make revisions. I believe we have a new agent, and we have, let's see, 15 letters of opposition. Sorry, we don't have 15. We have 15 Appledale. 1 letter at 15 Appledale, concerned with the windows.
And sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, we did have 2 residents register to speak at the last hearing, but they did not register for this hearing. They were sent the information yesterday via email, but have not joined us on the WebEx.
Okay, so perhaps the revisions are met with their satisfaction. So we only have 1 speaker then, the agent, Jonathan Benkowski. Good morning, good afternoon,
Good morning,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Benkowski.
Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Okay, I see we have your supporting materials. Committee, I guess we don't have anyone here speaking in opposition. Perhaps you can just go through the changes and where we are with this.
Yes, the 2 big changes. One is the original application proposed an addition to the existing dwelling, whereas the updated proposal before you today is to construct a new dwelling. Okay. The existing dwelling will be removed. This is somewhat of an anomaly of a lot in where it sits on Cheshire in relation to extremely sort of large California-style bungalows adjacent to the east and the west, as well as a property at the southwest of this that bisects it into the rear yard. So the setbacks to the existing properties adjacent to the east and the west are extremely ample at 7.76 meters to the west and 9.12 meters to the east. So any type of impact resulting from the development, which in my opinion also the variances are minor with the changes, is really mitigated by the vast setbacks to each side. And again, I would assume that the changes that were made appease the neighbors that originally had objected, as they have not submitted any written material nor registered to speak today. And I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you might have at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Benkowski. Any panel members, any questions for Mr. Benkowski, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? We do have urban forestry condition 3 and 3 letters of support in the additional materials on this application.
I just wanted to ask if the applicant was okay with urban forestry condition number 3.
Absolutely.
Okay, if that's the case, then I'm prepared to make a motion subject to that condition to approve. I believe it meets the 4 tests, it's minor in nature and desirable.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Alderson. Seconded for Ms. Alderson's motion. Mr. Taylor, all in favor?
Sorry, and
Unanimous?
just to clarify, we've approved the revised application.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Good.
Yep. Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Minkowski.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. We ready to go back to 15? Okay. Okay, so we're back to item number 15, which is an application, again, as I introduced before, there are additions, there's 6 variances. Planning is requesting, this main thing we need to hear from the applicant is whether he's okay with the planning recommendations to modify variances 4, 5, and 6, remove variance 3. Otherwise, planning says we should refuse the application. Welcome, Mr. Kukowski.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Oh, okay, that's great. Thank you. How are you today?
So I introduced, I don't know if you heard the introduction that I made earlier. So basically, what we need to know from you is whether you're okay with the planning. You've seen the planning memo?
Yes, we did. Dated August 23rd on the file, I believe.
Yep. Are what they recommending okay with you and your client? Or not?
Yes, yes. Sorry, maybe there was a mistake in the correspondence. I'm co-owner of the house, not an agent as such, but yes, we are in agreement with the planning department recommendations. As well, we concur that variance number 3 has been satisfied and should be removed from the file.
Okay, thank you. And so, yeah, I see you are the owner, not an agent. So my apologies for that. So we have
That's okay.
as well. We have a support letter from 11 or 7. Sorry, I think we have. Yeah, we have a support letter. Okay, committee members, any questions for the applicant, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Again, we do have the letter. Sorry, we do have the objection letter from 11 COULES.
Yes. Sorry. Sorry, an objection letter or support letter?
Oh,
Huh?
yeah, no, sorry, my mistake. It's a support letter. Okay.
Right. 11 COULES is our neighbors behind us. Yes, they're the ones who wrote the letter of support.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, committee members, any questions?
Oh.
Mr. Colas, Mr. Kukowski has indicated he's okay with
Good
the
case.
planning recommendations. And I believe we have
Yep,
urban forestry condition 1 and 2. You're okay with the urban forestry conditions, sir?
Oh, absolutely. We've been in correspondence with them, and we're happy to work with them to satisfy their requirements.
Okay. Thank you. So any questions or someone ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the revised application, which addresses the planning department conditions. I find the requested variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. So my motion would be conditional on subject to urban forestry conditions number 1 and 2.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. McCluskey, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Okay, have a great afternoon, Mr. Kukowski.
17.
Sorry, through you,
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chair.
much.
Before we move on to the next item, I just have to switch the stream quickly.
Okay.
So just 2 minutes, and then we'll have 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Yep.